Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Thursday mornings. Um, so yeah, I was just mentioning um, before the recording started, the kind of the series of the meditations that we're going through is based on a book called Meditations on the Path to Enlightenment. The author Geshe Acharya Thupten Lodin. In case you're interested, to reference some of the meditations. Um, and last week we were finishing up the 10 non-virtues, and now we're going to kind of look at um, the point of view of the heaviness of karma, and hopefully we can use some examples that can explain what we mean by heaviness of karma. So uh, we'll we'll look at it and see if we can bring it into our heart, bring it into our day, bring it into our mind stream, and change our minds. So just begin by settling the body, settling the mind, bringing our attention into this session. And we just think that most of the day we spend coming and going and engaging in non-dharmic activities. So right now for these 30 minutes, we're setting our intention to work with our minds, to change our minds, to create virtue. So it's a small part of our day, but a very important one. And since there's such a small part of the day, we want to make sure that our attention is present so that we're not drifting off, which will inevitably happen, but we can reduce this occurrence by sharpening our focus so we can bring our attention to our breath, the the rising and the falling of the abdomen. And without thinking about anything else, what we were doing before this session, what we're going to do after. We're just going to spend 1 minute watching this rising and falling of our abdomen. That's our only job for 1 minute. Now we'll set our motivation for the session. We can think that we're meditating for all those that don't have the opportunity to meditate, that don't have the possibility. For all the humans that just have no interest, for those that are in a place that is not ideal, such as living in a very harsh climate or a war-torn country. And for all the animals that just don't have the mental capacity to understand the Dharma. So we can do the meditation for them on their behalf. So we're continuing to meditate on karma. And within karma, the law of cause and effect, there's a concept of heaviness, or maybe you could say weightiness or intensity. So it's basically it's basically the gravity of action. And this determines the degree and the duration of suffering that you'll experience as a result of negative karma. So um, and there's also, a heaviness and a weightiness to the positive karma. So the combined weight of all the virtuous actions compared with the combined weight of all the negative actions at the end of this life, this will determine whether the next life is a higher or a lower rebirth. So it's kind of important to understand the factors that add power to the causal action. And so there's some factors that are kind of like mm, vary the heaviness of the karma. So one of these factors is type or nature of the action. And when it's a negative action, this nature is kind of like it's kind of like a degree of harm inflicted. So like the intensity of the pain the receiver is experiencing. So we can build a bit of a scene, a bit of a context. And if you think back to your childhood, they're quite informative or um, years of impression. And you can think about um, you had friends, you had some non-friends probably as well. And and you can think about a situation where you caused harm to a classmate. Um, and we'll start with the physical harm. So maybe you pinched them, maybe you punched them, maybe you tripped them. So think about a moment when you may have done something that you shouldn't have, but you did. So whether it was a pinch or a punch, it's a physical action, right? So this is a harm with the body. And these actions, they're heavier. They have a heavier karmic weight than those of like speech or the mind. So if you think about it, like why is that? Why is the physical punch have more karmic intensity than speech or mind? And speech could be, just calling them a name. So instead of calling them a name, you hit them. And it seems, I mean, if you look at this action, right, it carries more weight because the receiver, they're receiving the hit and they're experiencing this pain. They're experiencing physical pain. So I've just inflicted physical pain on a classmate, and now they're suffering through that pain. It hurts their body. They probably start crying. There may be blood. They need a bandage. So I think we can get a sense of what that's like. In fact, we've probably been the ones that have been hit before as well. And we were crying and we were bleeding. And so even within this kind of actions of the body, the physical actions, there's a heaviness and degrees of heaviness depending on the action. Like killing, is kind of the heaviest, um, carries the heaviest karma, negative karma. Whereas stealing, you're taking something from someone else or something that doesn't belong to you. That's less heavy than killing, and so on. But what about speech? So there's different ways we can harm with our speech, right? Um, we can lie. We can engage in divisive speech to divide our classmates, divide our friends into maybe friends and enemies, or we can just be rude. or nasty, or maybe we could spread some gossip in the classroom. So if we think about, here we are in grade school, and we tell a lie to our classmates. So you can probably think of a time where you lied. I don't know. You you said you got 10 out of 10 correct on the last quiz. You tell your friends, but really you had five, only five correct. But nobody knows. Nobody sees the paper. The lie seems completely harmless, but maybe everyone only received 5 out of 10. And by telling this lie, you've deceived your classmates. You made them feel bad, potentially. And all with the motivation of kind of protecting your reputation, maybe making yourself look good. Or perhaps you um, tell a lie about another classmate with the intention to create sides, to divide. Or what about just being plain rude with your speech, calling others names? So with the speech, the lying um, carries the kind of the heaviest weight, and then the divisive speech a little less, the harsh, rude speech a little less, gossip a little less. So you can kind of see there's these varying degrees of the speech and how they uh, have a different weight. So maybe, you know, you can contemplate a bit these degrees during the week. And they're not always obvious, but essentially it's the action that causes the most pain to the other. That's the heaviest. And if the pain, the suffering, physical or mental, is slightly less, then it's less. So I think as adults, we're probably not physically hurting people too much, I hope. But maybe with the speech, probably a bit of the easiest one as an adult to engage in. So we can watch our speech, what's coming out. What are we saying? And then, maybe at the end of the day, you can reflect a bit and think, did I say something negatively? And how does that equate with the weight and the spectrum of different actions of speech? So we can dedicate all the merits that we developed, created during this meditation for the benefit of all those that could not meditate, that cannot develop their minds, that don't have the faculties of the capacity to do so, or the environment. And we dedicate, may they have that capacity in the future, be in the situation to have a conducive environment so that they too can develop their minds towards enlightenment. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.